Wow, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Also from my side, very welcome to all of you, our customers, to our partners, and to the SAP colleagues. After we got a lot of information where the economy is going, we translated it, what the role of SAP will be into that. And we heard this morning, from my point of view, two very inspiring speeches related on upstream and also related to cybersecurity. It's my really honor to bring this now to the next level. What does it now mean for us from an IT-centric point of view? How do we really respond to that? And we really felt about doing another strategy presentation? No. We felt it's the best that we have a conversation with our customers. And from that point of view, I'm very delighted, very honored to have 3 customers with me this morning. We did do it before lunch, right? So thank you for coming. We also have somebody from our services organization, Stefan Klein. Why? It's very nice to talk about strategy. It's really now about how do we get you there, right? And from that point of view, I would like to welcome in a big way Ben. Ben is a CIO at Devon Energy. Thank you so much. Thank you for coming, okay? Thank you. The next one, I would like to welcome Nelson. Nelson Burns, VP of IT HollyFrontier. We want to make sure we have a good balance between downstream and upstream, so there's no good and bad today, right? Finally, I would like to welcome Blaine Perry. Blaine Perry as the VP and the CIO of Tesoro. Thank you so much, Blaine, for coming. Thank you. As I told you, we need to explain to you how do we get you there, right? To that real-time platform, ideally in the speed as we have seen here in the video. So I would like to welcome Stefan Klein, who is leading our digital business services at SAP. Welcome, Stefan. So, please. So I would like to start maybe with Blaine, if you're ready. I would be interested, right? We talked now about IT and business. So how would you see from your point of view, from a role as a CIO, how has business and how has your role and the role of the CIO changed? Let's compare it to 2014, for example.
And I'll speak for myself. My colleagues can certainly chime in. But if you look back at the history of the function, I think it was treated more as kind of a cost center mentality, a back office approach. And the reality is, as you heard earlier from the speakers earlier, the pace of change with technology over the last decade even, we all have smartphones. The expectation of connectivity, the expectation of a positive user experience has now kind of changed from the back office to the front office, where now we're spending more of our time on strategic roadmaps with true business outcomes as opposed to just keeping the lights on. So it's I would say it's our chair to lose at the table if we don't respond right.
And what you are saying, you start more and more from a customer's point of view and get backwards, or?
Yeah. So again, business outcomes. You start with the answer. We've also kind of maybe been a little bit more tool focused in the past as opposed to business process and business outcomes first, and then go figure out the architecture or the tool behind it. But that whole creation of demand, and I know we've heard it earlier, you're going to have more demand than you have capability and limited resources. So trying to prioritize that is one of the other big challenges.
Okay, thank you.
We've been talking that game for a long time. The business case first, IT project. You don't start with the tool for a long time. Is something changing? Or is something changing about the way that engagement's happening?
Well, part of it is, again, my opinion. Part of it is if you don't look at your roadmap holistically, you wind up with some bad decisions. Because maybe folks don't understand pieces of that technology that you really need to do, and somebody cuts it out of their budget, and it creates a compliance issue or something like that. So you really have to make sure that you're looking at an entire roadmap and not just pieces.
Okay. It's a good segue, right? Roadmap. I really like that, right? And maybe just an information, right? What we basically have done, we really took actions from that one, from an SAP's point of view. We will release moving forward the roadmaps, and we need to separate for cloud and for on-premise, right? So I can give the commitment here on stage that we will do it in 2 ways. For the cloud, you will get moving forward complete transparency on the rolling 4 quarters. So you really can plan your project's functionality rolling 4 quarters. With regards to on-premise, you definitely get the roadmap over the next 3 years. It will be very precise for the current year, and we will make sure that the product and the vision is very clearly reflected moving forward. So I can give you that information already today. That will be announced soon, but I want to use that opportunity to share that today. I think all beyond 3 years is not
the world will be different.
Yeah, the world will change, and from that point of view, but I think that will help to plan you moving forward in that environment. So you jumped in, right?
Always.
As always, right? Efficiency, margin, whatever, right? Whatever we will call this now, right? And I think you also asked a question earlier. So what can we do from your point of view to help to drive the operational efficiency or get the margin up? And what would you expect from SAP? How can we help you in order to do that in that environment?
Sure. I mean, you heard the conversation this morning, and certainly the questions I asked indicated where my head is that, you know, we did do a lot of SAP work early on. Most of us in the oil patch focused on just reducing cost, and the game has really changed from, you know, just trying to realize price efficiency, say, in your supply chain, to really looking at a broader picture of how do my supply chain activities inhibit or actually bolster, you know, my net present value or the actual rate of return from a project that we would take on. So it's a much more complicated optimization problem that we're trying to solve now. There's a lot more variables at play. There's certainly a lot more functional disciplines in the organization that have to interact to make that work. And the systems, you know, this is where it comes back to the technologies, the systems need to enable that, right? So,
yes.
You know, one of the things that we've talked about for a long time, but it's been hard to get people to buy into is, hey, look, don't worry so much about the bells and whistles in your functional area of the software solution. Let's think about how everything's going to work together, how the data is going to come together, how my ability to analyze the performance is going to come together. I mean, that's where we really need to shift, I think, the focus of the tools, less on the fun, you know, functionality, and a lot more on how the data is going to provide us the ability to analyze our business on a full life cycle basis.
Was that more an ask now towards us as technology providers, and us, I mean IT now, or are you saying this was more an ask for the business, or is it both?
I think it's everybody, right? I think it's absolutely an ask of the business that they don't worry so much about functional optimization within their silo, that they worry about the bigger picture. I think it's an ask of IT, and when we go and have a conversation about a roadmap, just like you said, it's not about one functional roadmap, it's about a roadmap to value for your assets. And then in terms of the software ecosystem, you know, and the technology providers, you've got to think not just about your product, but how your product's going to fit into a world. So the way you integrate data in and out of your cloud solution is as important as the functionality of the cloud solution itself.
You know, Ben, I wonder if we're seeing a bit of a downstreamization of the upstream. I mentioned this to you last night. You know, with operational costs and cost focus, and maybe some of the guesswork taken out of exploration production in terms of recovery fields and everything else. Do you see that? Is upstream turning a little bit more towards downstream in terms of the operational efficiency?
It's definitely a new world. The days of maintenance doesn't matter in the oil patch are over.
Yeah.
It does. You know, the days of margins don't matter in the oil patch. We're just focused on production are over. Margin matters. And you heard it this morning from the CEO of one of my peers. It's absolutely right in his laser focus. So absolutely, margin matters, and that changes the game.
Yep. And certainly the downstream industry is used to these margin pressures for decades now. And that's obviously something where the upstream industry can probably learn from. Yeah? I think that's definitely now where upstream industry, I think, is also looking at operational efficiency much more than in the past. Yeah,
yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But I think the other point, if I would take it out, and I interviewed now a lot of people, right? How can we give you more guidance, right? I would say as a consequence for SAP, and I just would like to validate if you agree on that. If not, you let me know. I feel from an SAP's point of view, we need to give you much more guidance moving forward, right? What do we feel is the right thing to implement? Giving you, less choices to some extent. I know that's hard, but if we give you 6 or 7 different options, there's a very likelihood that you assess all different kind of versions. And I think what I have learned, we need to give you much more guidance to say, okay, based on our lessons learned, based on the common practices which we see, the best practices you should have, this is the way to go. Would you agree to that? Or you should say, no, keep all the flexibility, keep all the options open, I need to figure it out. It was to you, Ben.
Okay. Absolutely. I've actually been very vocal about this for a long time. I think the fact that there are so many options in the ways that you can use SAP's platform of solutions is as much a problem as it is an asset. And in my mind, I think the industry and SAP should work really closely together to define a way that we use the tools that's going to be fairly common. I mean, we work with each other. We try to move data around and integrate with each other. The more we let everybody do, the more we encourage everybody to do everything their own way,
yes.
The more challenges, again, our business model is going to run into, where we have to reconcile that over and over and over again. For me, the more prescriptive we can be about how to use the technology, how your roadmap indicates we should use the tools, and where you guys are going to be making your investments, and what the best practices are from the industry that should be guiding that roadmap, should ultimately play out. I think that would be a huge benefit to the industry in terms of efficiency.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can only underpin this. I think from my experience with the boots on the ground in the projects, that's exactly what we are getting told. Yeah, more guidance, less options, and is obviously the reason behind is that CIOs understand that only this way you can really benefit from the high pace of innovations. Yeah. So this gets into the area of standardization. So I think CIOs more than ever thinking about, can I run this solution based on standard? Do I really need all the specifics? Yeah? Right. But obviously it requires a new way of thinking and culture, and we need strong CIOs. Yeah?
Absolutely. So we leave the upstream piece a little bit,
all
right? I turn over to Nelson now, right? I think also in downstream, right? If you compare that, I think we have multi-dimensions moving forward, how to serve our customers. So what guidance could you give to the audience, right? What do we need to do? What do we need to focus on automation, on integration, and as well as on the analytics in order to grow the top line?
Yeah, so my first thought on that is if you're not already working on it, it's probably too late, right? If my second thought on this topic is it's a transform or die kind of thing.
Yep.
And I think SAP realizes this, right? Otherwise, why would you have seen the investments in SuccessFactors and Concur and Ariba and Fieldglass and even HANA, right? The HANA platform. So SAP is pivoting to survive, and we have to pivot to survive as well. I heard a speaker earlier this year, Ram Charan. He's a management consultant, an author, worked for GE or consulted with GE. He made the statement. At the time, I thought it was very provocative. He said, if you're 48 and you're a CIO, you'll be looking for a new job in 2 years, was basically what he said, if you're 48 or older. And, at first I thought, this is some talking head just making a provocative point, but, over the next 6 months, I saw probably 5 or 6 peers in Dallas that were looking for new jobs that were over that benchmark. And anyway, the point is that we have to change, and we have to build a vision and a strategy for how to take advantage of this digital transformation or whatever we want to call it. And so in terms of what we should be doing now, I think you should be figuring out your architecture, right? Yeah. Figuring out what the platform's going to look like, what is your digital core and what's going to be connecting to it and how's it going to connect. And I think you have to get going. If you're not already working with analytics or operational technology data in some way, it may be too late. So
hard to catch up.
Okay. So one example, I think, how we can approach it, I think maybe goes the next question to Blaine, right? I mean, you're taking a completely new approach on that one. Maybe you can share, how you drive your platform within your organization. Maybe you can share that
Sure.
on your intent, what you do.
So my one takeaway from
Yeah.
is I probably should start lying about my age.
Can you repeat it for me?
I should start lying about my age.
It was a
apparently, based on his
I didn't say I believed it. I just said
hair dye, something, I don't know. So when, we had obviously multiple choices, but one choice, the two big ones, were we kind of used a car analogy. So we could take our system that, we knew how to drive it, we were comfortable driving it, we could go rebuild it and spend a lot of time and effort in doing that. And in the final analysis, though, what we would wind up with is kind of a brand new old car. So that may be fun if you're a classic car person, but
Yep.
they're not as functional as a new car with all the bells and whistles and things that you get with the new. So when we looked at the effort, it just didn't make any sense to go and particularly at the edge of the change and pace and technology, that we said, look, we just want to go ahead and do it. But it's interesting, of course, since we're in San Antonio, the analogy we actually used was a pickup truck. But okay, a few of you got it. So that's what we're doing, and it just doesn't make any sense to go and re-implement. And to be honest with you, the decisions that we may have made in the original implementation, you wouldn't make those again anyway. So it really gave us an opportunity to refresh and focus again on the process and not the tool, and as much out of the box as we can get, and try to automate the back office as much as possible. And it just changes your thinking. If we rebuilt the kind of old legacy way, we would kind of be married to that set of practices that we were trying to change.
And you would also agree with my statement, right? Doing that basically in a way that from day one, the people can get the necessary information to do their business based on their fingertips, right?
Correct. So I mean, you want to get one source of the truth, be able to integrate a data that right now we really don't have the opportunity to do in a quick and meaningful way. So we'll talk about big data and analytics and things like that later, but it really is being able to get the operational organization, because they'll always tell you, I have data, you're not giving me anything new.
Yeah. Yes.
But the reality is it is new, so trying to make that business case and trying to show them how it is new is part of the challenge that we face as leaders, and trying to make that light's going off, and you heard some of it in the breakout sessions that we've seen, but that to me is the next frontier, if you will, within our space.
Excellent. So
I just
Stefan,
hope the pickup truck is a combustible engine. I just want to point that out. The new truck has to be combustible
It'll
engine.
be an IC, internal combustion engine.
No hybrid or electric.
Yes. We don't have hybrid parking next to that.
So Stefan, you get now the difficult question, right? On play scenario, right, we don't have that issue, right? But let's say a lot of customers are here. The customers contributed, we contributed. I think we have still a lot of complexity in the systems. We did a lot of modifications, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm not pointing on everybody, right? It's customers, us, the partners, everybody contributed to that, right? So I think it will be a challenge, right, to bring the customer from where they are today in this nice, simple, clumsy, easy to use, agile environment. So what can you share with the audience? What do we do from a services point of view? And also planning together with our partners in order to do that in the most sufficient way. I feel what I learned, the days are over that we have a 2-3 years project, right? And I think that is gone. Yeah. So what do we do in concrete from a services point of view? Again, together with the partners.
So yeah, and I would even step back one step more and say what are we doing at SAP in total? I think obviously the complexity of SAP has grown with the complexity of the solution landscapes, of the whole IT world, but also actually of the value chains, to be honest. And also we as SAP have not always been easy to work with by this growth from the organizational perspective. And I think I'm 19 years with SAP, and I've seen a lot of changes. Every 2 years, every 3 years, I think that's what we talked about, is more or less a typical organizational change. But what SAP did since 2014 is, I think, the biggest change I've ever seen. I think, and this is why I'm saying I should step back, because in 2014 we started with the integrated LOBs, saying I think we were really serious at SAP about simplicity. I would even say, obsessed about simplicity and customer centricity. And the first step we did is we came up with the integrated LOB concept, putting all the units within SAP who are responsible for a certain industry into one integrated line of business. And this was, in my opinion, the most important step, to really make sure that we have all ducks in a row and we are starting to think end-to-end. Yeah? And even if Mark is saying in the presentation before, companies are thinking in silos, they're expecting from us to come up with end-to-end solutions. And I think then as a company, we had to set up ourselves the same way.
Okay.
And after the integrated LOBs, I think for us in services, and this was the question, of course, was we also had to align with this simplicity concept. And I think this started last year. We called it internally the one service concept, but in principle, we had to bring in all the services divisions, support divisions, custom development division into one unit, really thinking end-to-end. And the result is now Digital Business Service, which is a real global organization. I think this was not the case before. We were already difficult to have business with because we were cluttered around the world with big companies that had, I think, a dozen, if not hundreds of contracts with us in order to do business. So I think it was important that we are really getting a global organization, okay. Point one. And this is what we have achieved now. It's a real new quality. And the next thing is portfolio. And by really aligning the service and support organization into one team, we were able now also to, of course, use the strengths of the individual units. Yeah? So I think the support side of the house was always extremely good in repetitive task efficiency and especially standardization, I would say.
Yeah.
The professional services business, that's the nature of professional services, always had to be a little bit more freestyle. And now, of course, with having all these teams in one global team, we are using the strengths of both, coming up with a fully standardized portfolio to support our customers on the journey to the digital core. Okay. And we call it the Value Assurance Services concept. And you will find it in the brochure. And it's very simple. There's a number of really standardized services from landscape transformation till really technical migration, functional implementations up to innovation. And really where SAP has now a portfolio is easy to consume, which can be used for really the backbone implementations. Yeah? And we are also getting more simple because this is an offering we're making to our customers, but also to our partners. So really an enablement concept, making sure that the solutions we were thinking of in the beginning of the portfolio process are getting to our customers the same way. And I think this is, in my opinion, a big step in terms of making the life a little bit easier.
So to net it out, you would say we basically have achieved now to come up with packages for the customers depending on the engagement the customers wants to go, yeah. Right? Could be low, could be middle, could be the full enchilada. It's one thing. With the advantage of the customer that you really will get at the right point in time the subject matter expert which you really need in order to solve your problem globally, wherever that person will be. And finally, we have an engagement with our partners how we can bring you on the fastest way towards the S4-centered environment. Is that what we do?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And it never stops. It doesn't stop anymore. I think it's a continuous development process as, sure. Of course, our portfolio and software solutions are enhanced. But that is now where we have the first Value Assurance Pack suite available, I think just these days. Yeah. That is why it is in the brochure. Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
So
can I jump in there?
Sure.
So you talked about S4, you talked about your services, and then you also talked about, we've talked about complexity and then the speed of change necessary to keep up with business. So in the back of my mind, I'm thinking about all these things at the same time, Stefan, and you know, most of us in here have big running SAP environments, and we're trying to innovate on top of that, both with SAP technology as well as other technologies. You know, so you got to provide services. I think, in my mind, I think about services that streamline and really take the cost out of running the monolithic environment, yes. And of maintaining that environment, as well as being able to provide that kind of innovation platform, right? The ability to connect things in. So, yeah. You know, in our worlds, we've got to worry about the 80%, which is the environment that we're running today, yes. While we're focusing also on the 20. So how are you guys structuring yourselves to be aware and really support both parts of that equation?
I think what you are touching is a very valid point. I think the starting point of such a journey is obviously first an analysis of the as-is situation. Yeah. So I think whether you call it a readiness check or an S4 impact study, as some others say, I think that's the starting point. And of course, our field organization is heavily behind us, yeah, requesting on behalf of the customers that this is a service package we need to have available as a standardized service which can be delivered in a very scalable way. Because let's face it, I think we have thousands of customers, and we have a service organization which needs to come up with answers to these thousands of customers as fast as possible. Yeah? So I think as part of this value assurance service packages, it starts with really S4 HANA readiness checks, stuff like this, and basically includes then value implementation strategy, road mapping, etc., where we're trying to get the answers to exactly these questions. Yeah.
Okay. I think you touched a good point. I would say we need to not differentiate, right? But I see the run, as you say, right? How can we optimize that? Obviously, we also cannot neglect all the modifications which we have done, right? We need to take them with us, or we need to get rid of them, right? Ideally, we want to get rid of them.
Sure.
And in parallel, we developed this, the digital framework. And this is not for the sake that SAP has a digital framework. This is for you as our customer, and we have built it with you, right? Where you can start to innovate on the customer side, you can start to innovate on the supplier, on the supply chain side, you can start to innovate on the workforce, including the contingents workforce, and you have the whole assets and the IoT, which the Internet of Things plays into that, right? So you basically can start in these areas, and at the end of the day, you have the digital core, right? But it's not that we are forcing you need to go to that digital core tomorrow, right? We give you that flexibility to do both of them, right? Is it a challenge? Yes. It's all solved? No. But it's very, very clearly addressed that products, services, and also run later on will be one story moving forward. We still have a lot of work to do in order to get there and help you, especially what Stefan's saying, you know, how to scale it moving forward, right? It doesn't help you. You call Stefan and he will help you, right? We have another 339 customers here who want to get a similar approach, right, in order to get the industry moving. I feel we need to get the industry moving in a big way.
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
So speed
Yes,
is a great
speed.
subject, right? If you take this to the extreme, right? On my lessons learned with the big customers, they are really forcing us now that we get much, much closer towards the business.
Yes.
And delivering, let's say, solutions, output, whatever we will call it, to impact margin. Let's stick to that on a quarterly basis. So based on your experience now, Nelson, how do you do that, right? How do you change your ship to basically adhere to that new requirement?
Yeah, so it's interesting. So the speed, the speed of the transformation, the relationship between business and IT, it can be a really good thing, or it can be a really bad thing. And I think it depends on how well you're aligned with the business. And I think Blaine and Ben alluded to this earlier, but you know, you have to be aligned with the business. So I think every one of us in this room have seen situations where you're not aligned, and how that leads to, let's say, less than optimal solutions, right?
Yep. Career challenges.
What was that?
Career challenges.
Yes, career challenges, exactly. But if you can get that alignment up front, and you can figure out what that vision is, what direction you're heading, you can move so much faster. It's amazing. If I think back to when I took this job 9 years ago to today, you know, back then we could handle kind of one major effort at any one point in time. That was about the most we could get our arms around. Today, we've got major initiatives going on in HR, in operations, in the commercial organization, in accounting and finance, in EH&S, and the supply chain.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna run out of fingers here soon. I'm an Aggie though, so I can go to my toes next. But just the pace is amazing. But you have to have alignment to really take advantage of that. And this is where I'll bring up a concept. Have any of you guys heard of first team, second team concept? And many of us think of our first team as the people that report to us, right? And the people that you're in charge of leading. but really your first team are your peers around the organization. So it's the functional department heads, it's the other VPs or whatever in the organization. And if you can think of that as your first team, and your second team is the people that are reporting up to you, and really think about serving that first team, I think you can get alignment, and I think you can move a lot faster with it while avoiding some of those career challenges.
Okay, that's a good point. I think in that context, right, to some extent I am surprised, right? I hear my company and my company and my company, right? Listening to some other industries, right, if you take retail or if you take the consumer products industries, et cetera, I feel already it is not about your company and my company. It's about you and your ecosystem versus me and my ecosystem. Would you agree to that? And if yes, how could that look like moving forward? I think there is so much waste in the end-to-end chain that if we collaborate more and drive that efficiency, I think that in a big way would be a lever to drive the margin. And we have all industry capabilities on one platform, wherever you go. Let's start with you on the downstream side. Would you agree to that?
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I think that it reinforces everything we've set up here.
Okay.
Absolutely. It's about the ecosystem. It's not just SAP. It's the however many partners
Yes.
are represented here, and honestly the customers as well, learning from one another and sharing and lifting the whole industry up. So absolutely. And that's I think one of the great things about oil and gas is we have such a strong ecosystem.
Yes.
I don't know other industries because I haven't been part of them, but I think this is a great strength. It's conferences like these, the relationships that we build, the relationship they have with SAP, that ecosystem strength makes us all stronger.
Okay.
Absolutely.
An additional topic I would like to stress is, I need to get you speaking again big data, right? So how do you see the big data impacting the oil and gas industry? Will that basically be another hype, or will that help you also to come up with new business models moving forward? How do you see that evolving? And please, Blaine and Nelson, if you have ideas on that one, I would be very glad to.
I'm not even sure how to qualify big data anymore, because we used to talk about megabytes, and then it was gigabytes, and then it was terabytes, and then it was petabytes, and then it's real time. And so I'm not even sure what big data is anymore. So for us, I think what it really is just the value of data and the different creative uses that we can find for data. And you heard again on stage earlier today, it's not just about single process efficiency anymore. It's about artificial intelligence, machine learning, and concepts that I'm very amateur at understanding in depth, but am gaining a huge amount of respect for the way that you can use machines to identify patterns that we as humans actually have so much decision bias that we can't see. Yeah. Because we make false connections or we're too conservative in our decision-making processes. So sometimes machines are going to be better at making decisions that we think are reserved for human beings. It's going to completely change the industry for sure. On the upstream side, I can speak with great confidence. Again, you heard it already on stage. Yep. You know, one of the most cherished capabilities in our company is the seismic interpretation, and you already heard it referred to, not by me, not by an IT guy, as the sacred ground that's going to get, going to get trampled on by machine learning and artificial intelligence. So it's going to completely change everybody in here's jobs, by the way. If you're not already thinking about it, like Nelson was talking about how machine learning and artificial intelligence is going to change your job and your role in the company, you need to start thinking about that, because it's going to happen in the next 5 years.
Blaine, anything you would like to add? Or?
Well, when we talk about data, thinking about the impact to the role in the organization, it used to be that maybe we were the only ones who knew where all the data was and could help bring it out into the organization, and that's just not the case anymore. The data, either real time or otherwise, is out there, so it's less about going and finding it and more about the governance around it, making sure that it's good, because now that has to be crystal clear. And then the technology to be able to use it and get it is so easy that we don't have to really focus on that anymore. I had an intern come in and we said, hey, will you go build us some dashboards? And she said, okay. She went and watched YouTube to learn how to use the software. Within 2 weeks, she had built all of these dashboards. So I learned 2 lessons from that. One, hired that intern. and the second...
Don't block YouTube?
Yeah, exactly. Don't block YouTube, yeah. And the second was that that I now really need to focus on governance
Yeah.
and less about the tool. So that was my big aha for the summer anyway.
So I would like to end with a very dangerous question for me personally, but I think I want to ask it because I think you should speak on behalf of the whole crowd. If you take that, what we have talked about, right, the services and how do we get there into the real-time environment, and where we are right now as a company from an SAP's point of view, but also including all our partners here. And I start now here in the sequence. What would be the one thing where you say, SAP, that's what I expect from you in order to come to that real-time environment?
I think we talked about it a little bit here. We are going to live or die by our partnerships. And I mean that in the deepest way. We need you guys to come to the table and be truly open-minded partners with the industry, just like Nelson was describing. So for me, the one thing is to be a real partner in the truest sense of the word.
Okay. Thank you. Nelson?
Yeah, I would say continue to make the right decisions so that SAP will navigate this environment and be around in 10, 20 years, right? So it's, I applaud SAP because I think you guys got it, and you probably got it before we did, right, in terms of making the investments in the digital transformation, but continue to make those decisions so that, that we're not forced with looking elsewhere.
Okay.
So the most important to me, obviously, through this project, and we've talked about it, is, you mentioned it earlier, I don't want to have a bunch of customization. The organization doesn't want to have a bunch of customization. So to be able to give us that counsel, say, hey, you know, you're really doing something that's either standard or not standard. Most people do it, most people don't. That type of consultative discussion is very helpful. Don't just listen to us and go do what we ask. Right, so that's sometimes that's actually bad. So, but that's the most important thing for me over the next year.
Okay. So with that, I would like to close. I would like to summarize what I actually have heard. There is a big expectation towards us. I think we should not be arrogant, right? It's an accountability. The more we go on IoT, the more we go into the new areas. 7 by 24 is really 7 by 24, right? Mm-hmm. It's not just doing a little bit expense reporting. We need to make sure we get aligned completely with services in order to really deliver an end-to-end. From that point of view, I can commit you get the necessary guidance. From our point of view, we are working on that hard. Number one, we outline a clear roadmap to you. And we also, and I think a very important topic I would like to raise, right, there's a big focus on integration at SAP to really keep that DNA at SAP. I just would like to reinforce that. And with that, I would like to thank you, our customers. I would like to thank Stefan. You have a hard job in front of you to get all our customers to the new world.
I see it coming.
And with that, I would like to give back to Jason. I would like to thank you for your attention. Thank you.
Ciao, guys.